All right. Shalom, family. How's everybody doing? Make some space over here. Um, Shalom, Yashtaan. Kofi, head of the Servants of Christ. My Shalom Chi. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thank you for spending some time with us on this evening. Hopefully, you guys are doing well wherever you are, wherever you may be all over the world. Hopefully, your day has gone well. We're excited. We're thankful. We're grateful to have another opportunity to spend with you again on this evening. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. All righty. Thank you for being on with us. We appreciate you. How you doing, family? Come on in. Come on in. To the moderators, we appreciate you. I bow down to you. Thank you for what you do. To the ministerial staff, to SOC, to Lottie Dottie and everybody, thank you so much as we continue on this fruit fast. Hopefully you've been doing well. We started on the 1st. We're going to go to the 15th. And prayerfully you guys are doing well and doing excellent in your endeavors so far in this family fast. We're doing it for 2 weeks this time to make up for lost time. We didn't do one last month, I don't think, or at least it's been a while since we did one, so we want to make sure that we catch up. But thank you guys for being on. How you doing? Everybody, how you doing? MIT Steven, Nicole, Sister Snett, JoJo, Sister Deborah, Zahara, Yehuda Ben Yasrael, Darius, everybody, come on in, King Gal. We appreciate you. And thank you guys again for your presence. How you doing, Ralphio? Alrighty, everybody, thank you again for being on. We appreciate you. Everybody who was on Thursday Rising Prayer, children that were on yesterday for the Kung Fu Club, people who were on this earlier this rising, people who listened to Minister Nice yesterday. We appreciate you so much. We're thankful. We're grateful. We appreciate you. And we look forward to you all being on with us one more again. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and take some time out today. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? Tonight, rather, we're going to take some time out to talk about what is in a sovereign Israelite. What is that? Is there a necessity for it? Is there a need for it? What is that? What is a sovereign Israelite? It's a little dark over here. See if we can get a little light going over here. Hold on one second. Let me see if we can get the lamp plugged in and then go in. All right. We got a little more light. It's a little better. So what is a sovereign Israelite? What does that mean? What is a sovereign Israelite? Now, when I talk about a sovereign Israelite, it's a term that I don't think anybody's really coined. I'm not necessarily trying to coin it today. I'm not saying yet that it identifies one, but I wanted to talk about it because if you were an Israelite, then you believe in being a king under the king or a queen under the king. You are royalty, so you are sovereignty. But then also we believe in sovereignty as far as law, because we also believe in law, right? So what is a sovereign Israelite? How you doing, Jay? When I started praying and thinking about what we were going to talk about, this is what was laid out. And so we're just going to talk this through a little bit. How you doing, Sister Dawn? How you doing, Todd? Thank you for being on. Glad you're being mindful, and thank you for that. I'm doing well. Appreciate it. So what is a sovereign Israelite? What is a sovereign and what is an Israelite? And then if you're going to be sovereign and you're going to be an Israelite, what does that look like? Right? How you doing, Sister Monica? Like what is sovereignty? Right? And what is an Israelite? Right? I didn't say what is a Black Hebrew Israelite, which is something we're watched over as, even though I guess you could say people that are considered to be Black, many of them are Hebrew, and therefore they would be Israelites, or they could also be Israelites making them Hebrew, whichever way you want to take it, right? We could get into, what is it by faith, your belief in the Torah, et cetera, et cetera. But what is a sovereign? What is an Israelite? What is a sovereign Israelite? And if somebody's grafted into the tree, right, then what makes them have sovereignty under the King of Kings through being grafted in? And how you doing, Sister Betty? If I didn't say so already. What is a sovereign Israelite? What is a sovereign? What is an Israelite? Right? Is sovereignty necessary to be able to be separate from the world? How you doing, Winetta? Thanks for being on. How you doing, Sister Keita? What is a sovereign Israelite? If I'm sovereign and I'm an Israelite, what is it to be a sovereign Israelite? Right? When I put the two together and I live holistic, what does it mean? When it tells me that I am a royal priesthood, I'm a holy nation, I'm a chosen generation and a peculiar people, and I do not fit in so that I can bring forth the glory, right? I can bring glory to the Most High. What does that mean? Sorry, I have somebody trying to call in. I don't know who the person is, though. Maybe one of these days we'll actually let somebody in, but if I don't know people, I don't really just let them on, especially if we're talking about something specific. How you doing, Brother Keith? So what is a sovereign Israelite? What does sovereignty look like? If I were to ask you, what is a sovereign? As far as law is concerned, Western law is concerned, even. What is a sovereign? Somebody says, I'm going to be sovereign. What does that mean? First of all, how can I be sovereign at all? What's one of the first steps I should take? How you doing, 0913 lady? What is a sovereign Israelite? What does sovereignty look like to the Israelite? What does sovereignty look like in general? Right? Because some people would declare they're sovereign citizens, but you cannot be a U.S. citizen and be sovereign simultaneously. It's impossible. Well, I feel like this is not a whole, I feel like this, or I want to do this, but that's not how that works. What is a sovereign Israelite? What does that look like? What is that? Who is that? How does that operate? Sovereignty gets us to a place of dealing with something in law you would call public versus private, which would actually come out of substantive law. What substance is there to the law of what you do? What substantiates who you are? Well, what substantiates who you are is, are you public or are you private? If I'm part of the public basically, if I could make a quick working definition, public means that you are basically part of the government. You are a U.S. citizen and you are dealing with being an artificial person. And if you're going to live as such, how you doing, House of Judah? If you're going to live with such things, how you doing? I'm sorry, is it, I'm going to say it wrong. Kinsley? Kinsley? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Thank you for being on. If you're going to be public, it means that you are owned. Now, you can say in a sense you can still be owned and be private, but the public artificial person is not considered to be a real person. It's considered to be a straw man. You are considered to be property. You know that when somebody uses the term straw man, we're dealing with property. As far as law is concerned, we're dealing with property law. So in order to be a public citizen, I have to be not my authentic self. Right? And how you doing, Sister Sierra? In order to be a public citizen, I have to get away from who I am. In order to be a United States citizen, I have to not be myself. By definition. So many people don't live sovereign because many people are not really, I won't say interested, but many people are not really under the impression that living under themselves is a necessity. If we could just keep it a buck, let's keep it real tonight. How you doing, Detailing Collins? Many people will never worry about how public they are. And I'm not just talking about do people see you in public, right? We're talking about public, like the government. Many things that you do are attached to being owned. The food that you eat, that you say, well, you can't trust the food. Well, yeah, but you don't grow your own food. Since you don't have private food, you have to hope that public food, you can find a way to be able to exist and have public food that takes care of you. How you doing, Sister Renee? How you doing, S&D Mode? Yeah, it's very necessary because our children need to be free. Matter of fact, you're one of the reasons you consider to be public property is because you go by a straw man name. And the straw man name, you got that when you were registered to your state. I was trying to talk to somebody, maybe it was when we were talking in the live session earlier, and I was trying to make sure that you comprehend that, you had to be registered. That's why you have a birth certificate. Now, you can use that as validation to show that you were born naturally, right? But a lot of people try to authenticate their birth certificate. If I try to authenticate my birth certificate, what do you think is going to happen? If my birth certificate is a straw man to make sure I'm an artificial person, then what am I authenticating? How you doing? In motion. See, we gotta be careful. A lot of people authenticate your birth certificate. You hear all this stuff authenticated. But if I am authentically a straw man and I just authenticate it, then I'm still property. I'm just saying I'm authentic property. I mean, whether you're inauthentic property or authentic property, you're still going to be treated the same. How you doing, Minister Morel? See, so once again, what we're talking about tonight is what is a sovereign Israelite? Well, first of all, what is a sovereign? Is there a need for you, if you're going to be sovereign, to be private? Is there a need for you to separate from a wicked system? Everybody's talking about chat. I keep forgetting what is it. Let me look it up again. What is it called? Chat GPT or whatever it's called. Chat GPT. Okay. Chat. Everybody's talking about that, and you're worried about that. And I'm not even saying there's no worries that you shouldn't be worried about it to a certain extent. But hear what I'm saying. Before that, you need to figure out. So you're worried about what somebody's going to get you to try and trick into you into watching. You're dealing with that already in this virtual reality called fake news, social media, whatever. You're already dealing with that, right? You're just not thinking it. You're already trying to figure out as much as, I'm not going to get into too much of this because some of you might get into lost in the conspiracy theory side of things, but people don't ask questions like, hey, why is it that they were faking? I didn't say that they faked the nuclear bomb. I didn't say that, but hear what I'm saying. Why is it that they were faking some of the bombs that they showed the Russians? Right? Have you ever seen the video of, like, there's a famous video to where you'll watch it and they show that there's an explosion. There's no vehicle there. All of a sudden, the side of the house is burning up, and then there's a car behind it that's fine. And then all of a sudden, everything explodes and the car goes away, right? And but there was no car there at first, right? They're making fake videos. People will tell you today, oh no, they don't fake any of this stuff, and it's a conspiracy theory. No, it's not. You're already dealing in what you think Chat GPT does. You're already dealing with it. You're just not aware, right? Or you don't believe, or you don't research it because you don't think that it's necessary to research, but it's already happening. You've already been given fake information your whole life. You grew up in your school having to pass the test saying that George Washington was the first president when there were 8 people that came before him, or at least 8 times that there was a president before him in the United States before they changed the Constitution to make it more Muslim Constitution than anything else. Because the Treaty of Tripoli. The Treaty of Tripoli tells you specifically that the United States is not, nor has it ever been, a Christian nation. You're already dealing in virtual reality. You're already dealing in Chat GPT, if you will. You're already dealing in something else that writes up your perception of life, because we don't have a culture and we don't pass down things for ourselves. You're already dealing before Florida started planning things out to make sure they didn't teach you in schools. They're not teaching you already, because they don't teach you Mansa Musa. They don't teach you, right? They don't teach you Shaka Zulu. They don't teach you. They don't teach you Queen Nefertiti. They don't teach you. They don't teach you Queen Nzinga. They do not teach you. They do not teach you what it is that they did to the Lakota people, that Abraham Lincoln, who you think freed the slaves, which never did, but they don't teach you about the Lakota people and how there were going to be hundreds of them that were going to be hung, and they only hung 40 because on the same day, they couldn't have, on the same day the Emancipation Proclamation was telling you that y'all were going to be free, that they were still hanging a bunch of y'all. Right? You said you didn't learn that George Washington wasn't technically the first president until like 2 years ago. Yeah. Right? They're not going to teach you that in schools. Oh, the Hamilton play? Yeah, I still haven't seen it. I wanted my first time seeing it to be in person, so I could actually kind of have like an actual what is this about type thing in person or whatever. I don't know if I'm still going to see it or not, but yeah, but they don't teach you that. And think about that you would have gone through all that school and all this stuff in life, and nobody would have ever taught you. They would have never told you the truth about that. How you doing, Brother Ali? Like, they have to teach. So here's the deal. Here's the issue that we have. If they're not going to teach us, if they're not going to show you anything, and we're not going to do the research for ourselves, then we're just going to get lost. But if you want to become private, that means that you have to have your own private learning. You got to have your own private learning. You said deep fake videos, voice data, chat GPT, AI will cause tremendous misinformation. Sure. But what I'm trying to say is we have to have this information in line ourselves already, because we're already being misinformed, right? That's why you homeschool, you learn together. Yeah, we homeschool, we do homeschooling stuff together as a community all the time. We have several classes that we do just for the children and stuff as well, right? Right. So it's important that we do those things. I'm just trying to tell you, on top of that, you got to have some kind of private teaching. What's something that's taught just for us, and that nobody else from outside of our community gets to try and change because it doesn't fit their ideology? Something that's used to support their narrative. Right? Why is it that your people just now in the 1980s are trying to say something that everybody thought was real? You know, Willie Lynch letter of 1712, December 25th. Now in the 1980s, since then, everybody's been trying to tell you that stuff's not real. How you doing, Emmanuel? Because see, even the Willie Lynch letter told you that every time that you get any kind of tangible evidence of who you really are, they're going to introduce something else to cause you to question who you are. Why is that? Because you are public. You are belonging to somebody else. Your education comes through somebody else on just about everything if you're not careful. And so we have to begin to determine even private stuff. See, so when we're talking about sovereign, the goal of sovereignty, at least as far as my community and what we're trying to do for the diaspora, when we talk about sovereignty, a lot of people get this twisted. You think that sovereignty is going to happen when you are taken care of. You think that sovereignty is going to happen when you're okay. Right? You think that sovereignty is going to be all right when you have food. But see, if you're on an island by yourself, sovereignty is not really going to help that much. Sovereignty happens when you have a nation. Oh, wow. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. I've never seen that one before. The star was cool. Right? Yeah, it's better to give than it is to receive. You have to have a nation that's built. Watch this. Every time that you open up the Bible, for those of you who open up a Bible, you have to realize that those people live together as a nation. I had a dream a while ago, years ago, right? And I constantly talk about it because it hit me heavy. I had a dream, and I was a child, and I was in a tent. I came out of the tent, and I realized and recognized that I was in the tent with Israel when we were in the wilderness. And I looked around and I started noticing, oh, wait a minute, like that's Moses. And Moses came by and he touched my head and he said, hey, how you doing? How you doing, son? How you doing, Kofi? How you doing, Kofi? And I was so happy. And it was like, and he knew me. He spent time with me. See, in your mind, Israelites were just people that are kind of randomly stationed rather than realizing this was a family unit. Even the 122nd division of Psalm 122, the third step on the Song of Degrees, it literally tells you that we are supposed to be a compact nation. There we go, right? Supposed to come together. You said it will never be okay until we separate. Yeah, and I'm not even saying segregate, but I am saying that you're going to have to separate. It starts here. It starts with your business. It starts with your teaching. See, this is private. There's certain things I can't even teach about online because certain things, they have to be private. There's even just in life, the way it works in general, right? We had our ministerial staff meeting tonight. What did I do? I had to make sure that I brought them in. I said, hey, I want y'all to know my heart and things on some of the stuff that I'm teaching and things like that, because you guys have to be ready to be able to present the same thing. Even if you disagree with it, whatever, fine. Learn it from where I'm actually coming from. I might mention certain things that a lot of people may not catch, but I want you to catch it. Why? Because even in your personal life, you have a lot of people, like I have my family. They're going to be the closest. My wife, my son. I've got SOC family. I've got diaspora, right? But I've got inner circles. I've got circles that are outside of the inner circle, right? You have that in your natural life too. You have that in your everyday life. There's things that you and your family know about each other. You and your wife know about each other that I will never know, even though we might be cool. A lot of us know each other. We talk to each other. A lot of you guys, a lot more than even what's represented tonight, right? We usually have most of us on the rising, but a lot of us, we know each other, whether we're on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, whether we're doing the podcast, whether people are meeting in person, a lot, we know each other. People are even moving in with each other, stuff like that. People are getting married now in our community, stuff like that. We're getting ready to start working on the land and tilling the land and stuff like that. We have other people that we're thinking about possibly partnering with and having more land that we'll have an opportunity to have to where y'all looking at doubling what we've been going through and stuff like that, or what we thought we were going to have. right? Like, but we know each other. We have a relationship. But even in knowing you guys, talking to you, some of you I've been talking to for years now, it's still, right? It's still, you have inner circles, that there's things that happens even with your own communities where you guys live with each other, talk to each other, meet with each other, that you know about each other that I don't, simply because you're in close proximity. You said, so if anyone has any information as far as what? I'm sorry, Divine. Are you saying I'm not getting to the information fast enough, or I'm not sure, or did I not give something to anybody have any information for somebody who's in your area? I just don't know how to be able to deal with that, to make sure that I'm answering your question, right? So, do I have any word on Paul's epistle to Romans? Were they able to understand the culture? Well, Paul's epistle to the Romans, just like many of his epistles, were the people that would have been Israelite leaders. So, you know, they would have actually been leaders who were of the culture. And Paul talks quite a bit about culture, even in being grafted in, and what that means and what that actually means to be saved. And that's it's still my prayer that Israel would be saved. Israel got away from their culture, and therefore they started getting into a bunch of other things. Therefore, they have a zeal for Elohim, but it's not according to knowledge. But we should get back to going towards the end, the same belief that Yahashua said, get back to Moses. We have no heaven or hell to put anybody in, but we still got to be on point, because you have to confess, which means to have the same logic as Yahshua Mashiach, so that you can be a fellow heir and you can be raised from the dead and believe that it can happen, and don't exclude anybody else if they're willing to follow the law. But at the same time, how can one be saved? Anyone who calls upon a name, the right name of Yahweh or Yahshua, they shall be saved. But how can one be saved that they don't believe? And how can one believe unless they have heard it? And how can one hear what's not being preached? And how can one preach if they're not sent by the Most High? For how beautiful are the feet of those that walk in the way. Therefore, if they walk in the way, who shall believe our report? And then Romans chapter 11, which says, but should we get rid of Israel? No, Elohim forbid. Just because Israel made a mistake and Israel is off, Elohim forbid. That's nothing but culture. But once again, we have to be in the culture to even recognize and read it as such. Paul never said that culture didn't matter. Matter of fact, when people try to say, well, see, men aren't supposed to have long hair and women are supposed to be this and that and blah, blah. Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, he says that is not our custom. It's not our culture. That's not how we get down. However, if you want to know our culture, he said, I did give you part of our culture, which is Passover. And then he starts that in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 23, which a lot of people try to tell you is the communion scripture, but we don't have communion. We have Passover that we do on the right date, 14 days, 2 weeks after the beginning of the year. And we've had 40 days before that we've gotten rid of the leaven that's in our home. But once again, if we're not listening and living and reading in culture, we'll miss it every time, right? But that once again comes back to what we're talking about tonight. What is a sovereign Israelite? What is it to be sovereign? What is it to be Israel? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I tried to answer when you did. I saw your mom even trying to reach out, so I apologize for not being able to get back to you. It wasn't on purpose. All right, but thank you for checking on me. I appreciate you. So we have to get back to being in the culture, right? Beloved, let not your heart be troubled. See, that's from the public eye. You just go, oh, that's a nice scripture when people pass away and you do stuff at their funeral. However, beloved, let not your heart be troubled. That means David, beloved, David, right? It's talking about a specific tribe, Yehovah, Judah, the king of Judah, and the lion of the tribe of Judah says, beloved, Judah, let not your heart, your love, your passion be troubled. If you believe in the Father, also believe in me. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it was not so, I would not have told you. What is that talking about? That's talking about marriage. Because once two families have agreed that the son and the daughter can become one, they don't become one right away. They are officially on paper signed to each other, but the wife who's already qualified to be a wife but has not had sex and become the wife of this son yet, right, is going to prepare herself and get oil in her lamp, right? And prepare herself for a husband. The husband who is qualified to be a husband but has not had sex, so he is not a husband to that wife yet. On paper he is, but in real life he's not. The community will not have it. They're going to separate them, and he's going to go back to his father's house and build an add-on to the house. That add-on is called a mansion. So in my Father's house, there are many mansions. Are saying that the body that he's coming back for, that has oil in their lamp, he's building a house right now. He's talking about marriage. So we are married on paper to Yahshua, but he has not come back for us to have the actual wedding ceremony and for us to become one, to becoming one. You see, right? So this is like when culture shows up. You said it's getting weird. It's getting weird because you don't comprehend the culture, I guess. Or no, it gets weird for those that are in the world, I guess. Yeah, I'm sorry. Right. But if we don't comprehend the culture, yeah, it gets weird. But somebody says, beloved, let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in the Father, also believe in me. Well, that's because you don't know the culture. Like, go look it up. Go look up Amish people. Right. If you go look up Amish people, what are you going to see? See, a lot of people, you talk about the stuff, but you never go visit, or you never live with people, or you never even go and see, can I see how you guys live? They live by certain standards that are written in your stuff, but you don't live by it. So you hear certain words, but it doesn't make sense. So go to an Amish territory, go to an Amish neighborhood, and you'll discover that you'll see a lot of homes, right? And when you see these homes, it'll be something interesting that you're going to see. You ready? When you see the homes, what are you going to see? You're going to see a lot of homes, but then you'll see, like, why is that part of the home look like it's a whole different color? I mean, it's big, it's attached, but it doesn't look like it's part of the house because that's a mansion. That means that somebody went, found a wife, went back to his father's house and built an add-on. And his father kept telling him, because his father knows what it is to be a husband. He's trained him since birth on what it is to be a husband. But his father's going to be the one to tell him, this is what you do. This is what you're supposed to say. This is how you're supposed to operate. And how you doing, MIT Tracy? Right? The father's going to come and he's going to instruct him because he knows what a wife's supposed to have. And he's getting word from certain agreements that he's had when he and the, him and his wife and the wife of the, and the husband or the mother and father of his soon-to-be daughter-in-law officially, they've had conversation on what it is, what's her personality, how she should be taken care of, how she needs to feel secure, the affection that she needs, what she's going to need as a wife, what her personality is, etc. And so now the son is going to build something specific to whom's going to become his bride. And then eventually they will have sex, and sex is marriage, marriage is sex. After they have a ceremony, then they'll have sex and become one. That's cultural. How you doing, Islamborn? That's cultural, right? So but you don't learn that through being a public citizen or letting the United States Corporation not teach you about yourself. You won't learn that about somebody else's stuff, even if it's Amish, if you don't make sure that you privately go and learn something, because that's not going to be designed to teach. See, it's interesting. People will teach you if you're going to get your nails done. You want a nail technician. You want to know that they've learned how to do it correctly, right? If you're going to get your hair done, right, you want to make sure they know about the chemicals and what they're about to put in your hair. If you want to get your hair cut, you want to make sure that person's gone to barber school. If you're going to go ahead and get and for those of you who don't travel but you drive by car, you want to make sure that somebody's licensed to drive. Matter of fact, even if they're traveling, you still want, if they're buying traveling a big 18-wheeler, you want to make sure that 18-wheeler is something that they have a CDL license, right? You want to make sure they're licensed. If you get a tattoo, you want to make sure that tattoo artist is licensed. And even for some of you who you shouldn't be doing it, but you're shooting all that stuff up, junk in your system, or somebody's putting stuff in your chest, or somebody's, giving you the BBLs, you probably want somebody who's pretty close to licensed if they're not licensed. How you doing, Joy Boy, right? You want all those things, right? But when it comes to marriage, you don't care about any training. That means in the public, in the government, by the people who are owning you, you believe that you're supposed to be what? That they're supposed to not teach you about marriage. They want to teach you about traveling by car, right? Even though some of y'all traveled by car before you had a license, right? They want to teach you about making sure that you have stuff to put in somebody's hair, even though you can probably learn that stuff on your own. They want to make sure that they teach you about tattooing. And look, I'm not saying they shouldn't, right? However, you don't, because of the public, the way they raised you, you do not believe. How you doing, Jessica? Thanks for being part of the community. You don't believe, because of how they raised you, that you're supposed to actually make sure that you're pre-qualified for marriage. And in our culture, sex is marriage, marriage is sex. Matter of fact, in Western law, it is, because if you get married to somebody, you do your whole walking down the aisle thing, which is not our culture. You don't find in the Bible, even you don't find anybody in the Bible walk down the aisle. You won't find it. You won't find it. They wore a white dress. You won't find that somebody had to have a tux. You won't find that they had to have, a veil on. You won't find that they had to make sure that they walked down and they had the long train and all that. You won't find any of that, right? The father's already given them away, so to speak, when you had the knocking ceremony, right? And the two families came together. You won't find any of that, right? You won't, but you're going to do it. Why? Because The government tells you that that's something you should do, or those in public tell you that's something you should do. But you haven't found out what it is to be qualified. Even when I said sex is marriage, marriage is sex, if you were to go to the state, because that's what people do, you register your marriages with the state, you don't do private contracts. So when you publicly register your marriage with the state, you do so after you finish doing the whole walking down the aisle thing, right? But let's say you've been married for 3 months and you don't have sex. And you go before the judge, you say, look, I've been married to this person. They won't lay down with me. I'm done. The judge will say, no problem. And he will what? He will annul your marriage. It doesn't even exist. Why? Because it never existed in the first place, because you never consummated. Right? Thank you for love. But you'll hear somebody tell you that sex is marriage, marriage is sex. And we have people, usually brothers, because brothers want to be able to have as many sexual partners as possible in their Israelite belief. But they don't want to do it the sovereign way, the way that the Most High has said. But, you'll have this belief system that says that y'all should be, that you should have sex before marriage. You should try out the cow or try out the milk before you buy the cow, and all this crazy foolishness or whatever, and sow your oil, sow your royal oats and all this foolishness. And you can't find any of it. Yeah, I didn't know anybody either. I did walking down the aisle at first. We had to redo ours. And the ceremonies I do now make sure people know that we're going to put some of our culture in it. If we're not going to do anything, but when you walk down the aisle, we're going to say the olive bit and speak blessings over you through each character or something like that. We're going to do something where our culture is going to show up, right? But I'm just trying to tell you, like, we nobody made us aware of these things, right? And so, but why? Because it wasn't about us being private citizens. It was about us belonging to the public. That's all we really cared about, was registering ourselves to the state. We don't think about it that way, but that's really what happened. If the state, if the government, if the public recognizes us, that's why you want all the witnesses. Now, you should have the witnesses to make sure that your private contract is going to be something that everybody's going to stand for, and you have affidavits saying that yes, everybody knows what we're doing. They read it. Everybody agreed. The parents are involved. Spiritual parents involved. Whatever. Everybody's cool. That's what we should do. Right? How you doing, G? That's what we should do, but that's not what we do. Right? We do it so that we can say, everybody, look at this great ceremony that we had, and the people have a great ceremony, and then they got to figure out how to be husband and wife, and sometimes don't make it because you should have been trained from when you were born to be husband and wife. Yeah, because they don't teach law. And how could you make money off somebody? Right? Because if you taught people law, you would render Caesar's things to Caesar's and Elohim's things to Elohim. So you wouldn't pay taxes if you don't have to. Somebody says, well, no, we have to pay taxes. But if you were a non-citizen national, if you were private and not public, don't just sit up here and be like, oh, I'm going to tell the IRS I don't have to pay taxes, because you have to do everything lawfully. And a lot of people aren't willing to put in the work. It's real. You're supposed to do everything lawfully. And a lot of people are not willing to put in the work. They're not willing to be obedient to law. Right? They're not willing to be obedient to law. How you doing, Chosen? Is that MIT, Jenny? I'm not sure. Right? I can only see the picture. Right? But we don't like to be obedient to law. Oh, okay. It comes up as, okay, you got two different names. Cool. Right? We don't want to be obedient to law. So why would sovereignty matter? But if sovereignty doesn't matter, and you're not going to be a king, and you're not going to become part of a nation, then how do you become Israel? You said, what's the reading material? I just gave you some of it, right? Look up what a non-citizen national is versus a public citizen. Look up substantive law. Look up procedural law, remedial law. Look up natural law, because you can't have substantive law, which leads to public and private, if you don't know natural law. Look up universal law. By the way, what does the word universe mean? Universe is uni, uno, una, right? One, right? Uni, and then verse, a sentence. So a universe is a single spoken sentence. What is the single spoken sentence? Barashat bara Elohim at shamayam at aratz. In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. You got to figure out who spoke that and figure out who they are, right? That's because that shows that's king, and he goes by kingdom law. He's married to you if you're going to be faithful to him. That's marital law. And when you get to his law, he spoke it already into existence. That's universal law. And then everything has his nature of the one who spoke it into existence. That's why anything that is modified can be patented. But if it's made by the Most High, by law, you can't patent what he made because it's universal. So therefore it has its nature. That's natural law. So the only things that we should be carrying are his natural law. That gives you substance as a natural person. That means you're not an artificial person, but you're a natural person. That's substantive law. Then I can do the proper procedures of remedial law. You call it procedure or remedial law. And then, of course, you've got public and private. Public means that you want to belong to the government and you still want to be a artificial person rather than be private and have the opportunity to become what? A natural person, to be under substantive law, have substance as a natural, in the nature of Yah, the natural law, to make sure that you live by the one who spoke the universe into existence, universal law, that you might become one with him, marital law, that you might live in the kingdom, that's kingdom law. But you could do stuff like read the UCC. How you doing, Sister Amanda? You could do stuff like read the UCC. UCC 1. Protect yourself. Protect your property. You could do stuff like do UCC 1-308 that used to be UCC 2-0, or sorry, UCC 1-207, but UCC 1-308, which means that when you sign a contract, you have every right to be able to guard your human rights. You could do stuff like UCC 3-603, UCC 3-604, UCC 3-605 when people try to get you on stuff that they shouldn't be able to get you on. You could be doing stuff like 28 USC 3002 15A. What is that? That's or 15A, B, and C, where it tells you in United States Code. That's 28 USC. USC stands for United States Code 28 USC 3002 15 A, B, and C. That's 28 USC 3002 15 A, B, and C. Once again, 28 USC 3002 15 A, B, and C. A will tell you that the United States is not a country, but it's a corporation. B will tell you it's not a country, but it's a board. That's why you have a president, vice president, secretary, treasurers, all these different positions in Congress, a cabinet, etc. Right? And then you have 28 USC 3002 15C, which tells you it's publicly traded. You're not even in a country. That's why if you want to be part of a people, it's the people of New York, it's the people of California, it's the people of Florida, it's the people of Minnesota, it's the people of Missouri, it's the people of Texas. It's not the people of the United States. But you say, well, wait a minute. Excuse me. You guys will say, well, wait a minute. It says we the people of the United States. You'll say, wait a minute. It says we the people of the United States. Yeah, look at the Constitution. Because every president, every governor, every military personnel, every person, etc., who works for the government, they have to do what? Support and defend the Constitution. Matter of fact, they promise. They say, I, so-and-so, solemnly swear to do what? To support the Constitution or to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. But read the Constitution because something peculiar happens. But once again, we're not trying to be sovereign so that we can become Israel anyways. We just want to keep being part of what everybody else is doing. Am I a lawyer? I am most certainly not a lawyer, but I am somebody who knows law. And if you know how law works, you should know how to defend yourself better than a lawyer could ever defend you, right? So this is why I'm giving you these things to look up for yourself. There's also Supreme Court cases you can look up. You can also go on Google Scholar. A lot of you know about Google to Google something, but you never go to Google Scholar. Type in Google Scholar. And when you find out Google Scholar, you'll actually be able to look up cases and articles. So you'll be able to read about the stuff I'm saying, and you'll be able to find cases specific to what you're going through, right? Nobody ever goes to that. Nobody ever talks about that. But we're supposed to be Israel, alone law, and be sovereign because we're under the sovereign. He's the sovereign of sovereigns. He's the King of kings. He's the Lord of lords. You're supposed to be a Lord out here, but you have nothing to be sovereign over. Doesn't make sense. What is it? And what are we talking about tonight? What is a sovereign Israelite? You said, do you have to lose Social Security benefits? No, you wouldn't lose Social Security benefits because Social Security benefits are supposed to be there to protect you. And also, Social Security benefits, basically the way that we use them now, they're supposed to be something that comes from you putting effort in. If you get something because of your labor, that's something you earned. You can't take something I earned. And one of the best ways to get rid of your Social Security number is get with like-minded people who live together under bylaws on land that's private and make sure that you can take care of your elderly. Once you do that, they won't get rid of your Social Security number. You just don't have to have it attached to you. They're going to make money off of that number to the day that you pass on. And even once you pass on, just like they have people that vote, even though they passed away, Social Security number is what makes money. There's people who have gone to shelters. This is how the shelter works. They're going to ask you for your social every time. Why do they ask you for your social security number when you go to a shelter? They ask you for your social security number whether you go there again or not, because they're going to go to the government. I know, because I used to be somebody that did this for the military, not for shelters, but I did this in the military. This is how it works. If you want money, you ask the military for money, and you act like you're doing more than what you're actually doing, and you write up the next year you need more based upon fake statistics. So if somebody's getting money from the government to make sure that they house the homeless, what they do is they take all your social security numbers, and they basically say, look, this year we had 755 people that we had to take care of. You might have only came in one night. It doesn't matter. Your social security number's there, and they're going to keep it, and they're going to keep making money. It's a way of them being able to do that. By the way, it's not even lawful. It's not even law. It's illegal. It's not lawful for them to ask you. You're not supposed to use your social security number for identification. That's why they give you other ones to use, because they're not even supposed to ask you for it. The only reason why that started is because the IRS started asking businesses to start going ahead and take track of you and use your social security number. The Social Security office asked the IRS, please stop doing that. That's not legal. And IRS said, bump it, because what happened is, once again, though, this is when public and private started to get iffy. They tried to trust you as private citizens and said, all right, we'll give you tax breaks, if you guys just tell the truth, and if you guys got this many family members or whatever, we'll give you a bonus, because we know times are hard. And what did everybody do? They started lying. You got 2 children, but you said you had 12. And so the IRS said, well, if they're going to lie anyways, we're going to start lying too. And then they made more money off you, and they realized they could make more money off of lying too. They just kept lying. How you doing, Sister Judith? You see, so even the stuff that we're doing, a lot of people are dealing with stuff. You said, what about veteran benefits? Once again, that's your labor, right? That's your labor. You have a right to have a job relationship or an indentured servitude with anybody. There's no law against having an indentured servitude for anybody. Now, the military, when you're in the military, before you get out, you're kind of a slave, though. That's kind of what you sign up for, right? But you still have rights, though. But when you start going into your rights, guess what? You have to come out of being a slave, and you have to start identifying as somebody in indentured servitude. Well, somebody in indentured servitude has some kind of human rights. That's why you can violate a service member's human rights. But the service member has to know, right? We had service members who asked us for stuff to make sure they didn't have to take the jab, and they thought it was going to be impossible. No, it's not impossible at all. We just looked up law. Look at the Nuremberg Code. Boom. The United States military, the U.S. Army specifically, they started adhering to it in the 1950s. So if they did it in the 1950s, why can't you do it in the 2020s? You see what I'm saying? Thank you for being part of community. Marvelous, right? Marvelous one. No, I mean, you have a right once again to sovereignty. You have to start thinking of yourself. See, once again, we think of ourselves as belonging to the public. So even when we're in the military, many of us go in thinking whatever Uncle Sam says goes, without realizing they can't violate human rights either. But you have to think of yourself as human. You have to declare yourself as human. You have to, even when you sign paperwork, make sure you know about UCC 1-308. Put it right there on the paper. Put it without prejudice. Put it under duress. Whatever you got to do, make sure that you're putting something on there that makes it clear that if you need to go back over this contract, you've already put it on there, that from the beginning, you know who you are. Yeah, you got to relearn what independence is. And not even independence, interdependence with Yah. You don't need to see, watch this, the private. Once again, remember, we're not trying to become private just to be by ourselves. This is where people make the mistake. You want to be private to come together. A sovereign Israelite is thinking about coming together, nation building, right? Like that's the goal. See, a lot of people, they become private, and then when you're by yourself, it only takes a numbers game. If you're by yourself and somebody violates your human rights, even throws you into prison, if nobody's there to make sure that they knew you were thrown into prison, and they decide not to let you make a phone call. I was telling you the other day about family situations we've had where they've gone across state lines and kidnapped people, brought them and put them in prison, put them in the hole, put women in solitary confinement in male prisons, have taken other women in our family and have put them in insane asylums. That's what you used to call them. I guess you don't call them that anymore, but put them in there with men. And if you by yourself, when that happens, I mean, I don't know what we're going to be able to do to help. You said, how do we stop getting into contracts with the system? Once again, when you sign your contract, you got to make sure you sign as sovereign. Even if you don't have your paperwork together, you can sign and make it clear who you are. Like putting without prejudice and those quotation marks, putting under duress. If somebody's trying to force you into something that, okay, you got to do it now, but you know, you're really not with this. You're making it known from the beginning. I'm doing this under duress. Didn't they just come up with the whole Lizzo thing? Lizzo got in trouble because of how she was treating people or whatever. And people said that they did certain things, but what are they going to do when they go to court? They're going to say, she made us do this. If somebody says, well, if Lizzo made you do something that was so bad, why did you do it? What are they going to say? I did it under duress. It's law. You got to start speaking law. Everything has to be law. And you just have to start coming from a private mindset, right? Like we don't think about it. So once again, this is why we have to start teaching. It's difficult because a lot of us are trying to come out of what we signed up for, right? But there's things in place to still protect us. But a lot of people are trying to come out of what we signed up for and not even thinking about, well, before we start talking about coming out of what we signed up for, like maybe we should just start, and I'm not saying it's the only thing, we need to make sure people are coming out, but we need to start making sure, especially those before they go in or those who have a chance before they sign up again or whatever, that they know these things from the jump, right? A non-citizen national doesn't pay taxes. You get a W-8 BEN. And even if somebody on the job, even if HR says they don't know what that is, you keep telling them what it is. And eventually you just say, okay, I'm gonna go over your head, because somebody lawfully has to be able to tell them, if you're a non-citizen national, then you don't pay taxes. Matter of fact, if you don't want to go that route, learn the Supreme Court cases that support you. You got to find the ones that are after the 1930s. Because what they'll try to say is they change certain laws to where you can't use that anymore. But make sure you find the court cases where people stop paying taxes from 1940s on. And you'll find plenty of them. You'll find enough of them where you can use them in the court of law and say, I don't know why you guys are trying to force me, but IRS, you make sure you tell and be preactive, not just proactive. Don't be reactive. Don't just be proactive, be preactive. Make sure that you go to them first before they come looking for you, right? Before he even gets a chance to go to court. I'm going to the IRS, the state IRS office. I'm going to the federal IRS office. And I'm going to make it known that you're not going to tax me based off of this, boom, 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 boom. And if they try to send you a notice and try to scare you into it, you make sure that you send them a lawful copy of your what they call birth certificate. And you show it to them and you give them a cease and desist based upon what it is. Make sure in your cease and desist letter, it says exactly what we're talking about for no Supreme Court cases. You have a right to do so. But we don't think about it that way because we're not thinking about it as sovereign, right? Or we get to a place where, and like I said, I know with you personally, like we got to work out and do those steps or whatever, or write out the steps or make sure that step one is done and then come back to it or whatever. That's fine because a lot of us, it's scary for us to even think about doing these things. Right? But what is a sovereign Israelite? You can't be an Israelite and not be sovereign unless you're only focused on being in the land of your captivity. But Revelation 12 says the time is coming for Israel to start not only becoming a compact nation, but for us, or Revelation chapter 12, excuse me. I think I said Revelation 7. Revelation 7 talks about us too. But Revelation 12 says it's time for us to start separating, going back into the wilderness to make sure that we're in position for when the kingdom of heaven comes down, we're already there with our oil and our lamp, Matthew 25. So that where he's gone to prepare a place for us, we can eventually be where he is as well, John chapter 14. And you have to begin to learn how to write both together, right? That law is law. You know your religious rights are always protected first. Like, do you know this? What did we talk about last time? Matter of fact, let me look it up just to make sure. Was it Title 8? It wasn't last time, but a while ago. The Title 8? No. Well, Title 8 is something you should learn about as far as aliens and your nationality too. But which one is it as far as religious rights title? Oh, it is Title 9. Why am I thinking Title IX was something else? No, it can't be Title. Oh yeah, it is Title IX. Yep, my fault. Title IX. Right. Title IX. Right. Like even looking at Title IX, your rights, what you believe in. Remember, title when we read it, it tells you specifically that it doesn't matter if you're a minority. It doesn't matter if you're the only person that upholds the religious belief. It doesn't matter. It isn't like as long as you can show that this is how you operate. Remember the word religion. Religion is a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. Don't be out there by yourself. You got to start thinking everything I'm doing is about nation building. Everything. There's not one move I'm making that's not building a nation. It might be a mini nation first. It might be a micro nation first. It might be my house as a nation. It might be myself and having the nation, the kingdom of heaven in me. But every move I'm making is about building a nation. This is how people have begun to get their own. Right? You can't even ask. I've talked about this before. Stop asking about reparations if you're not a nation. You have to be a people. If you can prove as a people to even really get reparations. See, even the stuff they're telling you is reparations, they're saying we're going to give you a bunch of stuff that we still have to have our hand in, or we're going to tax you on it. Or, North Carolina, they try to play people and be like, okay, we'll give you guys money for starting businesses, but we're not really, going to actually, just give you the money for the business. We're going to invest in it. And so we'll still be making a huge chunk of money off it. So you don't have whole ownership. It's not wholly yours. It's not wholly, it's partial. Yeah, we have to learn how to put our ego to the side as well, right? We have to learn how to come together. By the way, if you're going to come together, a lot of that stuff has to come off. You're going to have to put your ego to the side. You're going to have to put your lust to the side. It's going to be difficult to become a nation because a lot of men and women are too lustful to nation build. That sounds weird, doesn't it? Well, see, before you can make sure that you build a nation, men and women have to be respected. There be people coming in each other's DMs. If you coming in each other's DMs, y'all try to live with each other, you're going to be going house to house, door to door, finding places in the land and finding places where nobody can see you and doing stuff with the trees. It's not going to work. Right? We have to deal with lust. A lot of people have been taught to breed, not to be married, not to have sex. Sex is marriage. Marriage is sex. There's some people, because life be slapping you upside the head, you end up in these situations where you're high all the time or you're drunk all the time. You're going to have to figure out how to not be in a drunken stupor or be high all the time, because you're going to have to be sober minded. I'm not saying you can't have mullein or have marijuana or have nicotine that's natural nicotine, and you're not just using it just because, and you should probably eat it and not smoke it anyways. But I'm not saying you can have all those things. What I'm saying is your mind got to be sober. If that's your mindset already, to where you're not focused, how are you going to build a nation? Some of you are going to have to. Trigger warning. Some of us are going to have to learn trigger warning. It's for educational purposes only. Some of us are going to have to feel safe enough to get in relationship with other people without them being allowed to put their hands on you all the time. Some of you have gotten used to it. Some of you are going to have to learn like what true love is. See, when I go back to that lust thing, watch this. Sometimes you might have a lust spirit because you've never even gotten true love. Now here comes somebody who actually just shows you the love of a brother or the love of a sister, and now you're looking for something else because you haven't gotten it. There's going to be some stuff that nation building is going to have to happen on the inside. There's going to have to be some stuff that's going to happen on the inside. You said you start smoking and drinking because how can you truly level up? Yeah. I mean, I used to do 4 packs a day at one point, being in the military. You don't go anywhere. I was young, teenager. Joined when I was 17. 18, 19 years old. I'm just sitting out in the smoke deck all day, every day, whether I'm on the boat or the ship or another country or just in the barracks or whatever the case might be. I'm just sitting there smoking all day. I mean, what else you got to do? Don't really have no family like that. Really don't have anything. I mean, I guess I check in and check out. I mean, what else do you do all day? Right? Realize that you're in your 20s, can't even walk up steps. Like you said, how are you going to level up? There are certain things that are going to have to happen. We don't even have a sense of having our own, right? We've been showing people's businesses at the end of the live sessions. We're about to start putting them back on the website again, a little better than what I did last time. A lot better than I did last time, But in all these things, we don't even think about business. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Within our community, we already have healers. And I'm not just talking about, oh, it's nice that they say they're healers. I'm talking about people who forward, my wife especially, go out, they forage for food all over the nation as we travel, put stuff together. And she's able to do, able to put stuff together for you to help you. Right. And we have people in here that will tell you the testimonies if you need them, stuff like that. Hey, how you doing? My wife is on The Honorable Mind. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Right. But we have that already in our community. We have people who do massages in different areas of the country. Right. We have people who can do life coaching for you in different areas. We have people who can pray over you. Believe it or not, that's a service, right? We have people that do HVAC for you. We'll give you a deal because you're part of the community, right? If you could, I would think sewing to them enough to make sure that at least they have a place to stay, right? But they'll help you out just because you're part of the community. We have people who do shea butter. We have people that do, different necklaces or different jewelry that comes, and some of the shea butter and stuff like that they're giving you is coming straight from the earth in Ghana, right? Straight from the earth in South Africa, Tanzania, stuff like that. Like I'm telling you, we already have the stuff within us, but we don't look for each other because we don't think about making it private. Okay, be careful on the road, Sister Kimberly. All right, thanks for being on. Right. And even when it comes to this stuff, like we have people, you can do evaluations. There's people on here who have great credit scores. You want to learn how to do it. They probably love to be able to teach. We have people in here that can dance very well. Why not let them teach? We have people in here, we do stuff with our children. We do homeschooling to help each other out. And it's going to probably keep developing. My wife is extremely great at making sure that she gets the children and stuff together. You have people that have all types of stuff. Why are we looking for everybody else when we have it within ourselves? This is what you have to start thinking. And by the way, that's not segregation. That's not reverse racism. That's not racism. Guess what that is? That's community. You would never go to Chinatown and be looking around and be like, why is it everything in here has to have Chinese characters? Because it's Chinatown. Why is it that they look out for Chinese people first over here? Because it's Chinatown. Right? It's something we wouldn't ask. Doesn't make sense to ask that. You wouldn't go to Little Havana in Miami and be like, why is everybody in here Cuban? It doesn't make sense to do that, does it? Why are they so big on pork in these places? Doesn't make sense to do that. You're in their community. But for whatever reason, in your mind, you think that it's shocking. See, let's deal with this with sovereignty too, especially when we're talking about being private, and especially we're going to be talking about a sovereign Israelite. Are you not aware? Y'all sovereigns, you said they accept us to not have a community so that we need to depend on them. Yeah. And then we oftentimes, the communities that we built in the past that they've taken down is because we kept on making sure that we were part of their system rather than just saying we'll separate. They don't need to know all the stuff that's going on. They don't need to come through the gates. They don't need to have to come on land. And a lot of people do that anyways. You can't just go on, when people who do homesteading, you can't just go on their land. Right, people that aren't even part of the community, the elders and the board of the community have to come together and decide if they'll let people come on. In your mind, you think that's wrong, but here's something we got to learn. If you're going to be sovereign, if you're going to be Israel, if you're going to be private, guess what? Guess what has to happen if you're going to be private? You have to be okay. Hear what I'm saying? You have to be all right. You have to be, you can't feel condemned by this. Don't condemn yourself when it comes to gentrification. Well, that sounds like a curse word, doesn't it? Pastor Kofi talking about gentrification? Yeah, don't be ashamed of gentrification. One of the reasons why we're worried about becoming non-citizen nationals is because we're thinking it's some weird thing or vile thing, or we have to gentrify. We're trying to make stuff look like ourselves too much. We have this weird thing in us to where we feel like we're not supposed to show us, but everybody shows us. I'm only using this word because I don't believe there's such thing as a white person, because the word white is not like the color white is not a person. I'm sorry, the color white is not even, there's no nation attached to white. The color white is not even a color. White used to just mean bright, see-through, clear, reflective, right? Snow is white. Go look at a snow crystal under a microscope. You would discover that it's not, there's no color. Go look for a white blood cell. You would discover there's no color. Go look for white polar bear fur. You would discover it has no color. It reflects. It's bright. It's clear. But let me go ahead and use the social constructs of the colonial constructs that we're used to. And we're going to talk about this social construct, this thing that's white people or whatever. If I go to a white neighborhood, I expect to see white behavior and white things and white people. And if I'm not accepted there, I'm not even mad at it because I'm not a white person. Now, I don't think that that's how you should treat people, but I comprehend, right? If I go through certain places, especially, you know, if it's not in our green book, like if I'm looking at the green book, if some of y'all know about the green book, right? If I'm looking in the green book, guess what? I realize I'm not supposed to go there. I'm not supposed to go there. I'm not supposed to go there. I can go here. I know there's sundown towns from Oregon all the way down through Georgia, right? You can go, or Florida even, you can go diagonal all the way across. And Washington State too. Alaska as well. There's certain places where if you look like us, you just shouldn't be there when the sun goes down. And I have no problem, because guess what? As long as you adhere to what they're doing, you can do business there. You can do all types of stuff, right? You can buy things there. But when that sun starts getting close to going down, they're like, you're not supposed to be here because you're not supposed to live here. Now, I'm not saying that's righteous. I'm not even saying that's right. I'm trying to tell you, I don't even find that to be offensive, because that's your people. How you doing, Sister Nadine? That's your people. And did I say hello to Sister Nadine earlier? I'm not sure if I said so earlier. Shalom to you if I didn't, right? But that's your people. All right, cool. But then somebody says, well, we want to have land for ourselves, and we want to ensure who's on there, and we want it to look like us, and we want to have our children be raised on our characters, and we want to give our story, not his story, but our story. And guess what? Because you've been trained to do this, you've been so worried about it that you're not untrained. And so since you're untrained, you're not you don't think that it's okay to do. You think that you should learn everybody else's culture, but not yours, because you were trained in school. You learned about all the British kings. You learned about, you even learned about Genghis Khan, and you learned a little bit about Gandhi, and you learned a little bit about the Tudors, and you learned a little bit about all these people, whatever. But you didn't learn you. You said if anyone mistreats Yahweh's creation, regardless of skin tone, it's wrong. No excuse. Yeah, of course. I'm just telling you, though, it's not something that really is a big deal to me. That's why I said earlier, I don't trip when another state or other states now are trying to follow what DeSantis or whoever put in place as far as what to teach and what not to teach. They weren't teaching us when I was going to school. Why would I expect that they would teach my child? Thank you very much. My child is out. I got it. I'll teach him Hebrew characters. My child been blessing us, seeing that he's speaking 3 languages, kind of sort of starting to get into Spanish as well, but he's, you know, he can speak French. He's speaking, you know, he's getting Hebrew characters down. He knows English very well. He's getting into Spanish some now. Like, I don't need anything outside. And if I do, I can do a contract with somebody, right? I can do a private contract with somebody and say, okay, teach my child this, teach my child that. Right? He knows the customs and traditions. He knows when we do Passover, whatever's on the table that's not ate, he knows we need to burn that. It's a sacrifice. Whatever's not ate must be consumed. Right? He wouldn't have learned that anywhere else. He wouldn't have learned that in church, because a lot of churches are public. That's why your churches are LLCs. You always think LLCs are great. LLCs, look up what kind of LLC it is. Or that's why your churches are 501c3s. 501c3s mean they straight up belong to the government. You see, so if you straight up belong to the government, well, I mean, why would I expect that your worship would be private worship to where you could worship Yah the way that you privately have been called to do as a nation? No, your worship is publicly owned. Even your worship is not even can't even be private. It's hard to worship when your worship is controlled by the public, diluted. Yeah, you have anxiety when you send your child to school. How they're going to treat your child. We have somebody who's is it Minnesota, and you know, it's one of those situations where they're the only child that looks like us in the class, and other children can call them the N-word and all this stuff or whatever, and the other child, nothing happens to them at all. No suspension. Basically had might have had, I think maybe the child had to stay after school for like 30 minutes, something like that. How's your child going to be taught anything? And that's what they're going through. You think your child has an actual fair shot at being able to get what everybody else has? See, even here's something else you're going to have to learn is trying to be a sovereign Israelite. Watch this. Are we not supposed, y'all tell me if I'm right or wrong. You tell me if I'm wrong, right? Biblically speaking, are we supposed to pass things down from generation to generation? Is that how that works? How you doing, Teflon? Are we supposed to pass things down from generation to generation? Question. Yes. Okay. We can touch and agree on that. We can touch and agree, right? Well, we don't want to pass curses down, right? But we definitely want to pass that, right? So watch this. Then that means that in your community, guess what you should be doing as far as passing things down? We should be passing down what? There should be nepotism. We should be passing down culture, most def. Thank you, because that's always the first place I'm thinking, bro. I appreciate you, touching the green with me on that, right? I'm sorry, I said bro. I'm sorry, excuse me. I was looking at somebody else's name. Excuse me, forgive me. Sorry, I just realized I did that. Please forgive me. Sorry, right? I didn't mean to be disrespectful. That being said, right, pass down culture, but watch this, wisdom, all that stuff, but nepotism. My son, if his father is able to get to a certain level, guess what should happen? My son should not have to go through some of the stuff I went through. He should get my work ethic. He should love Yah the way I love him. He should have a passion for Yah. But there's certain things that my son shouldn't have. I was talking to somebody. We went to the store today, and we got a bunch of stuff culturally. We always try to get some stuff that's of our people and stuff, and we try to make sure that we do business with our people. And so there's a particular place out of relationship that we go to, and make sure that we see this particular person who has the name Moses, or has the name Musa, right? And when we went there, or whatever, first thing he does, there's a shirt there or whatever. Actually, I'll be wearing it tomorrow, but whatever. As soon as I come in the store, right, it has a hat with it, but I'm kind of well past the days of hats fitting on my head, but this is hanging up right there, right? As soon as I come in, beautiful, right? Brought it in from, where did he come from? Not from Sierra Leone. Where did he come from? Where did he just come back from? I can't remember where he just came from, but anyways, walk in the store, beautiful shirt right there, right? And everything, the only one there, it's my size, this and that. He's like, yeah, go ahead, get it, and I'll take the price down to whatever it was. Praise Yah, right? So get this chemise, or what you might call shirt. It's not is this a dashiki? I guess this is a dashiki, because people think of dashiki print, right? Or the pattern makes it dashiki. It's actually the material that makes it dashiki, right? But we get it and everything, and we're getting other things in there. My son, got this beautiful thing that he wanted to get. We see a lot of different things there, or whatever. You can see I got an Ankh again or whatever. I haven't really had one that I wore since the one that kind of broken or whatever. It's made out of some really nice material. Hopefully I'll get it fixed. But get a few things over there, right? Some things that are cultural or whatever. And yes, this is culture, by the way. A lot of you think that an Ankh means that I'm automatically attached to Kemetic beliefs, but before they were Kemetic netchers that started to be attached to these. The Ankh existed, just to let you know. I'm not ashamed of it. I don't wear it as often as I used to. Who knows? Maybe I'll start wearing it all the time again. But anyways, so we go through, we getting all this stuff. We're looking at different things, whatever, right? And we're having conversation and culture. Is something that's there. And I tell them, as we're going through stuff, we start having conversation about travel. And I tell them, like, yeah, we go here, we haven't flown, back in a while, but and all this stuff. And we travel, and we start talking about our travels, even in the United States. He's been, he's much older than I. He starts talking about in the 90s when he went cross country and blah, blah. And I was telling him, yeah, we're not really doing cross country this year, but we're going to go kind of sort of cross country to make a couple trips for places to be able to do some business. And he was like, man, that's great. And I was telling him how Solomon's homeschool. He was like, yeah, that's great. So you guys can just pick up and go and this and that. And he was even telling me, and I was telling him, I was like, my son has traveled to so many different places that even I have had a lot of chance to travel in my life, but he's so used to it. I mean, when he was still a baby, he was going to Japan, places like that. He just has it in him to where, he might take it for granted. But I was like, he gets to see things and do things that I never even at one point in my life thought I would do. Like I didn't even go on an airplane until I went into the military. So my first airplane trip I was old enough to remember or recall is when I'm 17 years old. So to see my son, traveling the way that he does, and for it to be something that he just does, is something that I was like, it's so amazing. I'm so proud and so excited to be able to say that my son can do, but that's nepotism. And we don't like that word. But because I'm able to do certain things, my child should not have to worry about experiencing certain things. He's being geared up and trained to be able to take on things that his father didn't have a chance to do, because his father is trying to be better than his grandfather, which means that my son should be better than his father. And nepotism is going to be the thing that launches them up there, right? Y'all, people be thinking that nepotism means that these people aren't skilled or don't have any. No, it's like, yeah, guess what? Even though LeBron James' son, just had cardiac arrest and praying that he feels better. But, LeBron James' son should get a chance to play in the NBA more than you should. That's just the way it is. Why? Because LeBron made it. He's already in there. He's probably going to be on the team and everything. If anybody should be able to make sure that their child gets in there, why not LeBron? Right? Carmelo Anthony's child coming up soon. Steph Curry. He came from a sharpshooting father, Dale Curry. Like, you're going to get to the point where you're going to start seeing 3 generations that have played in the NBA from one family, maybe even more than that. And it's probably going to happen. If you're into, what's something that y'all don't even think about like that? Some of you know about, some of you don't. Professional wrestling. There's 3rd generation wrestlers, right? There's 4th generation wrestlers. If you know about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he was a 3rd generation wrestler. His mother owned a wrestling territory. His father was a famous black wrestler. His grandfather was a famous Polynesian wrestler. And now his daughter is in the WWE, former WWF, former WWF. If you know about the history, that might be too far to the side. But I'm just trying to say, like, there should be certain things that you get because you put your child in position and you make sure you give them the work ethic so that they make sure they take it to the next level. Right? You should make enough to make sure that you're taking care, or you should, even if you can't make enough money, you should have enough to do what? To take care of your children's children. See, for me, I'd even look at my children's children, because if I can take care of my great-grandchildren, then my mindset is one where my grandchildren be fine. If my grandchildren are going to be straight, then that means my child's got to be on point. And if my child's going to be on point, then I got to have something that I can give to them. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, so it's like it should be on me. People be saying stuff like, see, this is when people want sovereign stuff, but you want to be a sovereign Israelite, but you still want to be a public citizen with the mindset. You just go, the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. I'm justified. That's not how that scripture works. That's the second half of the scripture. What's the first half of the scripture says? It says that you have to be willing to take care of your children's children. Then, see, if I'm looking for private means to make sure that I'm building a nation, even out of my own seed, for those who are sisters, out of your own womb, then guess what you're going to do? You're going to make sure that you start building stuff for your grandchildren, so that now the wealth of the wicked is laid up for you. Because even the wicked, this is the context of it, even the wicked have enough sense to take care of their children and their grandchildren and their great grandchildren. That's why they plan out hundreds of years in advance. You sitting up here now talking about this LGBTQ plus stuff. I don't know. And you got those of you who can't stand the people, you should love the sinner and hate the sin. But for those of y'all who can't stand any of it, any person, you don't realize that Baphomet stuff been around for hundreds of years. The Greeks doing what they were doing with those platonic relationships where they were messing with little boys and we're having them in high heel shoes and stuff. That goes back thousands of years. Sodom and Gomorrah didn't just start yesterday. There's a plan of the enemy. The enemy's thinking about generations. You're thinking about how to survive. Everything that I do has got to be generational. Even if it's going to hurt me to do now, it's going to make it hard to survive. My ultimate goal is not that my child would survive, but that they would thrive. Every decision I make is for my grandchild to thrive. My great-grandchild is going to thrive. That means that I might struggle now. I don't care if I struggle if my great-grandchild thrives. Go ahead, put all this stuff on me and take all the stuff on. And people tell me all day long when I'm on live sessions that I'm wrong about this and wrong about that and cuss me out and call me this and call me that and say all this stuff or whatever. At the end of the day, my great-grandchildren about to thrive out here. It's about to be different. My culture must thrive in them. The food that I eat must thrive in them. What marriage is must thrive in them. Why are my wife and I going to make it for another 100 years, 110 years? Because we're going to live to be 150 and 153 at least. That's what I'm asking y'all for, right? Why must we make it a century's worth of marriage at least? Why? Because my great-grandchildren and my great-great-grandchildren, my great-great-great-grandchildren that come on to somebody, they need to see this thing work. They need to see the value in it. They need to see that when I close my eyes, that Pop, that whatever, I don't even know what they're going to call me, but Pop was on his stuff. That he loved his wife. That he loved his wife so well that he was a patriarch, and his being a patriarch was not their patriarchs, because our patriarchs hit different. They won't be ashamed of their patriarch. There's not going to be anything that comes up that says, oh, we found out Pop was out here and he was cheating, because Pop don't cheat. And if Pop don't cheat, then that must be, then, oh, maybe that's why grandfather didn't cheat. And if grandfather didn't cheat, maybe that's why father didn't cheat. And if father didn't cheat, maybe that's why I shouldn't cheat. I'm leaving generational wealth. I didn't just say generational riches. I didn't just say generational health only. Those things are nice. They need to come, but it comes as a package, holiness. Well, Pop could have just said, you know what, forget all this stuff, and could have taken any donations that he gets as a Levite, because as a Levite, he never had a 9-to-5, and he could have just said, you know what, we'll live stylish as Levites or whatever. But Pop said, you know what, like, it's about the nation. They got land together. We're going to take care of the land, because even though we don't own the land, because he set it up to where no one person owns it at the same time, we're going to take care of it, because that's his legacy, like it's going to be SOC's legacy. Like it's going to be Israel's legacy. They found a way to become a compact nation, and they didn't just do it once. They kept flipping it over and over again to where they did it in this state, and then in this country, to the point to where now they become a sovereign nation. Like, this is a different mindset. You got to start nation building. Israelites think different. Sovereigns think different. Oh, what if you ever became a sovereign Israelite? In your mind, and then in your actions. Watch this. How much money do you think I spend on anything outside of sovereignty in Israel? I'll help you out. Somebody says, oh no, well, you got to get this, and you got, if it's not something that's blessing sovereignty or Israel, it's not worth my investment. It's not worth my time. It's not worth me losing my sleep. It's not me possibly losing my family. It's not worth me not making sure that we're taking steps forward. If it's not about Israel, if it's not about sovereignty, then it's not worth my time. Right? I don't know how I'm losing this or losing that. How many McDonald's trips you take? Is that going to help sovereignty? Is that going to help Israel? I didn't say you can't eat out. What I'm asking is McDonald's going to help you to be healthy and therefore pass on generational health? Is it going to be a great example? If not, McDonald's is off the menu. Are you buying modified food? Getting organic seedless grapes, organic seedless watermelon, organic seedless oranges, organic seedless plums and stuff now, organic seedless avocados and stuff. If it's not about sovereignty, leave it alone. My wife started sprouting popcorn seeds from a popcorn bag. Had something, and not even ours. Somebody else had it, not supposed to really be eating it, whatever. But she said, you know what? Let's see if we can make these seeds work. They're seeds, aren't they? Sure enough, they started sprouting. Now, even though they're probably modified, guess what? After a generation of the seed, it's going to go right back to what its original intent is. So even if we're going to sprout it, we're going to sprout it what? Because you're trying to get something that's going to feed the kingdom, feed our family, right? People are spending money, right? You sitting up there and you buying Budweiser or whatever. If you really feel like you got to have something that's healthy anyways, you can make your own alcohol. You can make it healthy anyways, and you don't have to have it to have drunk. You can make it to where you get a little something off it or whatever, if that's what you're looking for. All you got to do is ferment some stuff. Get some fruit and let it ferment. Boom. How much did that cost you? And you have it and you know that it's natural. Now, what if you grew it? What if you got pineapple from the store and you cut off the top of the pineapple and you sprouted that and then you put that in the ground and then you let pineapple grow out of the top of that and now you have your own pineapple? I think it was Sister Nadine on here was talking about the fact that she's got like 4 or 5 pineapples that started from one pineapple top. Right? Like that's sowing into kingdom. That's sowing into nature. You said so we can still plant GMO seeds and throw out the first fruit and it'll bear seed. Yeah. Or even, I mean, well, this is up to you, right? Because I know we want to be clean and everything. So it's up to you. But I mean, even if you're growing it out of natural ground and stuff like that and it's not sprayed, if you feel like eating the first batch or whatever, eat the first batch. You know, at least you got food. And then out of that next batch or whatever that's going to pop up, you can make sure that you still grow. Everything from that should be back to its original intent. And every time that it keeps growing, it tries to go back to its original intent. You said you accidentally made liquor from strawberries. I mean, or you made, alcohol or whatever. Yeah. But I'm just saying this stuff that we're going through, even if you smoking tobacco, like I said, really most people, when you smoke cigarettes, you're just addicted to breathing in, breathing out. If you start doing breathing exercises and like deep ones, breathe through the nose and you see the difference. Because even a lot of people, they go, that's shallow. And by the way, when you come through the nose, guess what? Your nose is a filter. That's why you're breathing through your nose. It filters out stuff and makes sure that what's coming in is stuff that's actually there. That's why you have all the nasal passages and mucus and stuff. Your body captures all the stuff. It filters everything that's not supposed to go in anyways. Breathe in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Right? Don't try to force the stuff back through the filter. You're clogging your filter up. So even breathe in when you're doing your breathing exercises. That's why a lot of people are smoking. Is because you actually have breathing stuff. Or if you're going to do it, get some actual nicotine, real nicotine, and do that together. Because by the way, nicotine can help with certain things. Like even people that have been bitten by sharks, they've had incidents, people bitten by sharks, and people have taken cigarettes and just crammed it into the bite, and it actually helps for the bleeding to stop because nicotine actually helps, the blood flow or the blood to, to harden and everything that it needs to. Oh, you let it sit too long with honey? I mean, yeah. So I'm just saying so there's a lot of stuff you can do naturally, even if you are doing those things. Right? You can still do a lot of things naturally to be able to make sure that it's happening. And at least once again, it goes back to being private. It goes back to being sovereign. Right? And by the way, it will. Now here's the last part. Right? We're just touching on this stuff. This is just surface level stuff we've been talking about tonight for real. But it will take time. Yeah, coffee grounds. Yeah, now coffee is so messed up too. I'd be worried about. I don't really drink coffee like that, but we keep coffee around for if we need. So I don't really like the taste. If you see me with coffee, it's usually because I'm on the road. We're going somewhere, and I want to make sure that I'm alert. So if I didn't get much sleep or if I'm a little tired or whatever, you'll see me with coffee. But you, I'm just trying to say you will. And all this stuff is going to take time. It takes time out to live a life that's sovereign. You have to get accustomed to it, get used to the customs, right? Make it customary, make it a habit. Habits take at least 21 days. 21 days of motivation, right? A habit will at least take 21 days. Some people argue it's got to be 28 days. Some people argue it's a month. Some people argue it's 3 months. A habit's going to take you about 3 weeks. And if you want to have multiple habits, that means you have to dedicate your life to multiple habits. It's going to take time. If you want to forage, some of you are just going to automatically go to the store every day just because you have a habit of going to the store. Some of you have a habit of waking up at a certain time, just like some of you wake up without an alarm clock just because it's a habit, right? Your body gets accustomed to things. They become traditional, so to speak. Make sure that you start making things that are traditional in your life, things that are bringing honor to Yah. If you want to be private, be private. It first starts off with, though, being private with the right mindset. What is the custom? What's the traditions? What's the culture? And once again, I'm not as a private sovereign, as a sovereign Israelite. I don't think that the public non-Israelite is going to be able to teach me how to do what my community does. There's no value in it. The more private I become, the less chance there is for the United States corporation to make financial gain off of me. That's just the cost of doing business. They held on to me as long as they could. After a while, they realized they couldn't hold on to me. You got to let me go. And thanks for being part of the communities, Swazi 9. Right? So you must realize that you're going to be in a situation where now your seed is the seed of Yashla. And the Bible tells you in Genesis chapter 3 that the devil has a seed too. And the devil's seed, the devil's children, the world's system, is going to be in enmity with Israel's child, Israel's seed. When it says I put enmity between thee and the woman, go research that. Didn't say I'm putting enmity between Adam and the woman. It said I'm putting enmity into the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. The woman, when you keep studying Jeremiah chapter 3, when you keep studying Isaiah chapter 9, when you keep studying Revelation chapter 12, that's Israel. We had somebody the other day, they always try to hit us with the same scriptures. And they were like, see, and the enmity and law and blah, blah, and you don't have to obey the law. It's like, you don't even know what the Bible's talking about. When it talks about enmity, it's talking about the enmity and between the devil's seed and Israel's seed. And if you're going to become a seed of Israel, child of Israel, and would be a tree planted by the rivers of water that in its season gives forth much fruit, and fruit gives seed, then that means that the seed that's coming out of you is an enmity with the seed that comes out the world. We talked about that today, Matthew chapter 5, I believe, right? A tree that is an evil tree cannot bear righteous fruit, and a tree that bears righteous fruit cannot bear evil fruit. A righteous tree doesn't have evil fruit, and an evil tree doesn't have righteous fruit. A banana tree doesn't give you apples, and an apple tree doesn't give you pears, and a pear tree doesn't give you oranges. An orange tree doesn't give you avocados. Know the tree by the fruit it bears. And we're looking at what? For the goal of seed. Don't stop at just fruit. It tastes great. Everybody likes it. Everybody likes the color. Everybody likes what I do with it. The tree gives fruit because the fruit is supposed to give seed so that the next generation of tree will be able to go just far enough to where it still could be attached even at the root. But the goal of it is to make sure that it does go away, but it's going to be able to get a better chance. Why? Because of nepotism out of the tree. The tree is going to do everything it can to provide enough opportunity for the fruit to be able to house the seed, that the fruit might be attractive enough to make sure the seed has a chance at life. I'm sorry, do I think it's a foreshadow for Esau and Jacob? A foreshadow for what part? I'm sorry. Of the tree, of the... I apologize. I'll be saying a lot of stuff, Sister Sage. you gotta help me out. What was it though? Do I think it's a foreshadow? Which part? I apologize. I missed it. We'll let that be the last part if you can help me out. The specific. No, you don't have to be sorry. I just don't know which part you were talking about. But the you can remember. I always mess this up. Is it second Esdras 6:9 or second Esdras 9:6? I always mix up those verses. One of the two. Is either second Esdras 6:9 or second Esdras 9:6. Right? It tells you specifically that the beginning or the end of all these things is going to be Esau, the Esau spirit, and the beginning of everything else is Israel. And that comes to a place where we got to even recognize in our own bloodline is the potential Esau and the potential Israel. Come from the same place, come from the same daddy. But still, one is Esau and one is Israel. Like, you got to be ready, like, for these spirits. Like, the word keeps telling us, but once again, you got to figure out, do you want to be public or private? Esau's going to end up being public just about every time. Israel's supposed to make sure they're a sovereign nation. You can't be a sovereign nation and be public sector. You can't be a sovereign nation and keep doing what the corporation tells you to do. You can't be a sovereign nation and not even try to make sure that you sow into your own businesses. How you doing, Sister Patricia? The enmity between the snake and Eve. No, well, the serpent is basically talking about the devil. So anybody that's a child of the devil. So the devil has more children than just Esau or somebody with an Esau spirit. Okay, so that part, yeah. So it's not really a foreshadowing of putting enmity between them, because Esau fell for the okie doke and became the children of Canaan, ultimately, and the children of Canaan are the children of the devil. So when Esau became children of the devil, right, then he put himself where he's at enmity. Remember, Esau was supposed to be subservient to Israel. That was supposed to be Esau was going to be subservient to Israel. Esau decided to go, I'm going to fight against it. Then they became subservient to Canaan. Remember, we even talked about that a while ago when we talked about Jasher. I believe it's Jasher chapter 19. And we talked about who was a Gentile. And if you do the research, you'll see that Canaan actually then went over to the Druids. And the Druids actually started mixing and matching with some Gentile type stuff or whatever. And then the Gentiles and stuff, or the Gens people as well, you start dealing with them. So you even have some mix and matching of that or whatever. But when they decided to be with the devil, that's when they became at enmity with the seed of Israel, of the believers. That woman who said, it's very clear when you get into scripture, especially by the time you get like I said, Jeremiah 3, Isaiah 9, other places as well, but especially when you get to Revelation chapter 12 and it describes the woman. And if you just simply read Genesis 3 about the woman that there'll be enmity with and how she's described and what's going to happen to her seed, and then you look at Israel in Revelation chapter 12, this woman with 12 crowns and what's happening to her seed, that's the same people. And it says that those people need to separate and go into the wilderness. Wilderness is just a way of saying you don't belong in somebody's civilization. If they say that that's a wild animal, that animal is not actually wild. That animal's actually wild when they're in your civilization. But the animal in the zoo is wild. A lion in the zoo is a wild lion. The lion that's in its civilization is not wild. It's civilized because it doesn't live in your civilization. It's not designed to live in your civilization, right? Well, we as a lion, we literally, even in the West, we were put in zoos too. However, we are in this place where we're caged and we're not even in the Serengeti. We're not even in our own land. We're not even going by our own customs and traditions. We're not in our nature. And so therefore we're really wild. When our children are literally wilding out, is because they're not in something conducive to who they are. At some point, we have to give them something conducive to who they are. All men ain't nothing. Look at how these little boys are in an area where there's no reward for them being Israel. Of course, he's going wild out. Of course he's going to betray you. Or of course he's going to think that Sarah plain and tall, because that's what he read in school, is better than you with them hips. I mean, that's how he was raised. There's no reward for loving you. And even when he loves you, some of you who have never been loved, it's hard for him to love you, because some of you have never been loved. You don't reward his love because even the love seems unfamiliar, because you've never been rewarded for being the divine, feminine, spiritual, beautiful soul that you are. So you have two people that don't get rewarded for being themselves. Of course you come against each other. Of course you want to be in relationships with each other, but keep telling each other why you don't need each other. It only makes sense that you would do that, because that's what the beast did. That's what the system did to you. It doesn't really make sense, but that's what happens. That's what we do, right? I mean, imagine, like, now that I've gone into this stuff, it's hard for me. Like, I put the stuff up of me in the past and stuff, so you guys kind of can see where I came from. And sometimes y'all see me in the suits and the pictures that I show and stuff. But man, like, you know, when you wear your own stuff, I can't imagine like putting a suit and tie on anymore. Like, for what? Like this right here, compared to the stuff that they were putting on and was kind of drab, I don't see the relevance in it. But it's because I look through a different lens, a different eye, and a different culture, a different countenance. You see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense to go to something that doesn't represent my people. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, you know, Sarah plain and tall, that's what they had you read in the book. So you was looking for Sarah plain and tall for a while, or they had you reading the book that you wasn't nothing. They had you reading the book that you came from nothing. How you doing, Apostle Anthony? You know, and so after a while, you start believing the nothingness. But see, an Israelite is a sovereign. A sovereign is an Israelite. You can't talk about he's the King of Kings, but you're not sovereign. He's the King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. Well, lords have territories. I wonder what your territory is. And we say it all the time, but we don't have authority. Increase my territory. What territory? I'm not saying it all has to be physical, but hear what I'm saying, right? Increase our territory. We pray for our neighborhoods. What neighborhoods? You don't own your own food. You don't own your own gas stations. You don't own your own hair places. You don't own your own buildings. You don't have your own apartment complexes. You shoot each other. If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. You will off each other on street corners, talking about that's your street corner. How you got a street corner and it's not yours? Yeah, man. Snoop is ours. Yeah, man. Dr. Dre is ours. Yeah, man. Eazy-E is ours. Yeah, man. Ice Cube is ours. Yeah, NWA. Yeah, all the way. Anybody who's selling dope on my street corner to my people, that's not one of ours. You are a murderer. Anybody who's making sure that you're giving sugar and getting children addicted to sugar the way that they addicted to dope, but sometimes it's worse. You are hurting us. You need to hear this. Like we talked about earlier today, this is sent. It might not be coming to you, but it's sent, right? Because shepherds are supposed to be sent by the Most High. They shouldn't just show up. The wolf comes, just shows up. The shepherd's supposed to be sent. And whether I like saying it or not, you need to hear it. Because some of you are offing your own community and not even thinking about it. How many times is your son going to have to hear how their father, how many times is your daughter going to have to hear how their father is trash? Let them make a decision about it. You keep your mouths off of that person. Having boys growing up who are destitute in behavior because they're destitute on the inside because they're told what made them is nothing every day. That's not for you to determine. You bless them. You love them. You forgive the other person. You forgive the deadbeat, all that. Let them figure that out. Because every boy is going to see his father in the mirror every day, no matter what you say. Allow him to do what's righteous. Don't have him end up being somebody that grows up and can't obey the commandment. Boy, honor your father, because that's what it's going to cause you to have a long, long life. You're shortening his life. Well, if he was here, then he'd be able to shepherd them right. You're absolutely correct, but he ain't here. And if you're going to be the person that's acting like you're going to shepherd them correctly. Mom, why is Dad not here? I'm not really sure. I could tell you, but that's not in my heart. What I will tell you is that I've forgiven them for not being here, and you're supposed to be better than both of us anyways. Oh, I know it's tough. I know you felt a certain way. I know, oh, I don't like that at all. But Yah didn't say you have to like it. He said you got to love it. Hate me all you want. Hate the messenger, but I'm not the one who wrote it. We nation building, right? Don't allow him to be somebody that hurts the nation the way that his father hurt the nation. Do you hear what I'm saying? Are you catching it? Because we are the reason why these babies are doing this, because we're not sowing seeds of righteousness. If you feel like you can't say nothing great about them, do what your parents told you, or your grandparents, or your mama, or whoever taught you, right? Do what they told you to do. If you can't say anything nice, then don't say anything at all. And if you got to take your behind on a walk, then go and walk for 5 hours and come back in, so that when the child asks you something, whatever, when they say, how's it every time that when I ask about my father, you have to go for a walk, say it's because I don't have nothing nice to say, but I'm not going to disrespect your father in front of you. Oh, and I know that hurts, but guess what? You're not honoring their father. You're honoring your father. That's how it works. Because your blessings never were going to come through their father anyways. He was supposed to be the vessel, but he ended up not being the vessel. No problem. Just get it direct from your father. It's not about, see, look. I'm doing everything I can to be the best example of a father and a husband that I can be. Praise Yah. Tadah Abba, thank you, Father. I appreciate the ability to. But if something happens to me tomorrow, my wife knows that I'm just the vessel, and y'all just using me to pour out who He is, and I'm becoming the best version of pouring out that I can be. Now, I'm not saying that's all I am. There's more to us than that, right? But hear what I'm saying. I'm the vessel that pours out, and if the vessel gets broken, if something happened to the vessel, if there's a crack in the vessel, you need to still make sure that you recognize who pours the vessel, because even if he can't use this vessel anymore, even if he has to turn you into the vessel for a season, even if somewhere down the road he had to get you another vessel, whatever the case might be, at the end of the day, you be in tune with the one who's pouring the vessel. Don't get don't get entranced by the vessel, right? I'm just the vessel. I'm just the vessel, right? I'm just the glass, right? Don't get so messed over by the glass. Don't get so excited by the glass that you forget that it's just a glass. This glass could break tomorrow. I use this glass a lot because it's glass. I don't like plastic that much, so I try to use as little plastic as possible. But just because I have this, it doesn't mean that it might not break. But Yah could have it to where there's another vessel that He might use. He might decide to use another vessel. He might decide to use another vessel. If he does, so be it. Let him use another vessel. Right? But love this vessel, be with this vessel, whatever. But I'm just a vessel. But make sure you know who's pouring out. Just make sure who's pouring out. As long as you're in tune with the one who's pouring out, if the vessel cracks, if the vessel messes up, I'm a human being. I don't know what tomorrow brings. I promise you I'm going to try my best to be obedient, but I'm a human being. If something happens to me, if I'm disobedient, or just who knows, if Yah decides that this is the last time you hear me talk tonight, and you love me enough to love me as the vessel, and make sure that you love Yah more than you love me. That's what it's always about. If you love me, keep my commandments. Well, I would say the same thing. If you love Him, I keep commandments, and I try to show you how to keep commandments. So if you ultimately love the vessel, the best thing you could do is just do what the vessel did and pour into somebody else. And find another vessel that Yah's using. As long as He's pouring, He's the one that's supplying what's in there. If He's He has to watch this. He doesn't just use the vessel to pour, but He's the one that pours into the vessel. So if He's pouring fresh water into the vessel with all the nutrients and everything, and you getting that H3O2, not that H2O only, and He's pouring that type of stuff into the vessel, then you need to pour that same. Then you need to be in position when He makes the next pour, or you need to pour the same thing. A lot of you just get poured into, and then you just stay somewhere and say, look, you become that wine bottle that people hold on to, where somebody's drinking 100-year-old wine. Who cares? You mean you did all that to just keep the wine, to say that the wine is better because it's 100 years old? What's the point? You mean you think that that's worth paying thousands of dollars for because somebody just kept it in the same place for hundreds of years? It wasn't designed for that. It wasn't designed for that. Some people out here trying to make sure I'm not going to give you anything until you give me this much money. It wasn't designed for that. That's not how this was designed. This is not what this is for. And some of y'all are so enamored with old wine that you even try to take old wine that's not even for this, you didn't even use in the season before, and you trying to put it in the new wineskin. I'm sorry, excuse me. Some of you are so enamored with the old wineskin. Sorry, I reversed that. You're so enamored with the old wineskin that you try to put new wine into it. There's a new spirit for a new season, not even new, but there's a specific season that needs to go ahead and mature and be perfected inside the wineskin. And rather than put it in new wineskin that can hold it, you're trying your best to make sure that you're putting it in the old wineskin. The old wineskin is going to bust open because that old wineskin was for that particular season of wine. What is an Israelite sovereign? Or what is a sovereign as an Israelite or a sovereign Israelite? You've got to be somebody who's willing to obey the law, be royalty, and do whatever. You said it's the worst? I've never really done the ancient wine thing. I've never really done a 20, 30-year-old, 40-year-old wine. I have friends that have done that before in the past. It's just an exercise that seems to be an exercise of futility to me. So I just have never, done it. But nevertheless, thank you guys for being on. That's all I have for this evening. I'll be on with you guys in the rising. Somebody else will be giving the word in the evening. We thank you guys for being on. We appreciate you. We really do. As always, we give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. I'm thankful and I'm grateful for you guys being on tonight and spending some time with us. That's all that I have for this evening. So thank you again for being on. We appreciate you. To the moderators, thank you as always. To the ministerial staff, love y'all. Appreciate you. To SOC, to those who listen to the first time. If you're Israel, if you agree with us, disagree with us, whatever the case might be, we appreciate your time. You could have done anything else with it. And we are excited that you would spend some time with us. So thank you. We appreciate you again. We honor you. Thank you, babe. I appreciate you for that. Much love to everybody in the community. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being before you again, please remember as always, Yashara Al, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace.